call this meeting to order for August the 18th. First thing on is the approval of the agenda, and I would recommend moving number 4 to possibly next week or whatever. I don't know if we want to discuss that when we get there, or
We could do that now, Mr. Chair. We did not receive any applications for the Open Buffalo Red Watershed District Manager position by the deadline. And so I thought we should bring that up for discussion. We can do that now or at a later time in the meeting about how the board would like to move forward with getting additional applications.
my thought is that in order to get applications by next week, we're talking only a couple of days, so we'll probably move it to 2 weeks from now.
Let's do that.
By statute, does that work?
Yes, we've followed statute through this process, and Bowser has stated that we're not required to hire any of our applicants, and so therefore we are in the clear on moving forward.
Well, the terms expire
Correct.
August 31st, so we've got, the positions are covered until then anyway, so.
Okay. Well, I don't know what recommendation would be if you want to go next week or 2 weeks. I would recommend, I think, 2 weeks.
Mr. Chair, I would, if we're gonna just do number 4 right away, I would move that we put the extension out to, today is the 18th, so would that be the 31st?
That would, we would be looking at, let's see, the next meeting is August 25th, and so the following meeting would be into September.
Okay.
Well,
Moving to that.
It'd be September 1st.
Yeah. We better plan on trying to make an appointment that day then, but
okay.
All right.
then I move it to September 1st.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we need approval of the agenda.
I'd move to approve.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, that was,
I think we,
Okay, I think Kevin moved to approve it.
I
We'll
second.
go with Jim on the second for approval of the agenda. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, maybe just to follow proper procedure, maybe I should remake my motion now to, on item number 4, because we hadn't approved the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
So it's a technicality, but,
Okay,
so I would make the motion to,
okay, we had Kevin to make that motion. Jim had second that motion to move the interviews to September the 1st. All in favor?
Aye.
Only got one eye out of that.
but I thought, did you say December 1st?
Oh, September 1st.
Okay.
We're not gonna get through this one
September,
today.
December. Let's call the whole thing off.
Kathy, you can come back at a later time. Citizens that hurt, here we got one citizen that,
We did, Mr. Chair, we received an online request to have a brief statement read on behalf of Wayne Brendamule in conjunction with our appointment of a Buffalo Red Watershed District. Mr. Brendamule stated, "Dear Commissioners, please, when choosing to appoint a Buffalo Red Watershed District Manager, that you choose someone with rural/agriculture background or knowledge, and not have all the managers from the the Clay County with only urban background. There needs to be a diversification on the board." Wayne Brendamule.
okay,
Did he put in an application with that, or?
He did not.
No.
Wayne's very active on the town board.
I know,
He's very active.
It's-
He's also on the advisory committee of the Buffalo Red Watershed Board, so he's active in that.
Yeah,
capacity.
he does a lot of stuff.
okay, with that, we'll move on to the approval of the payment of bills and vouchers.
Move approval.
Second.
Get a motion by Jim, second by Kevin to approve the bills. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That will move on to Kathy with our weekly update. I guess I had a request from people, or from a person that we should get closer to the mics. I don't know if those mics are working properly or not, but It's a tough time to understand people.
I think
from-
it's, the black microphones are good. The other ones you need to speak more closely to.
Okay,
I noticed that one doesn't work so well either as we listen to some of the meetings. That one is the one that doesn't pick up voices very well.
they did say they hear you good enough. No, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I thought I had a pretty quiet voice, so. Okay.
No, we just want to make sure we're
Sure.
heard out there as long as.
Absolutely. So I handed out the numbers again, our COVID cases, and on the two-page handout, we have the Clay County numbers as well as the Minnesota numbers. So Clay County has positive cases of 799. That was as of August 17th. We still have 40 deaths. That's been consistent for the last few weeks. 744 that are out of isolation. And then the Minnesota cases, there's 65,716 with 1,712 deaths. And there's 58,859 out of isolation. So as you look at the numbers on the back of, you can see our confirmed cases by the testing date, and those no longer needing isolation, and number of deaths. So right now, it's 15 active cases, and that does fluctuate as they add more cases on and off, but those are the number of cases that we are following up with. We also have worked with, I mentioned, I believe, last week, that there were some issues with phone numbers and not being able to follow up with some of the cases and some of the contacts. So we've been working with Sanford to kind of make sure that they're ensuring that they get the correct numbers, and they have been, but there's been, I think, some, I'm not sure exactly what the glitch was, but there was some issues that hopefully will be resolved and we can follow up, so we don't have cases that are sitting out there that we haven't been able to follow up on. We also have our 14-day case rate per 10,000 people. That's a number that across the state we've been using to help schools make a decision, K-12 schools, about what kind of, are they going to be hybrid or in-person or totally remote. And so our number in Clay County right now is 9.87. So it's below that 0 to 10 rate. So schools can make a determination whether they want to be in classroom. That is a rate where they could do that. This will change. We'll have updates probably every Thursday on this number. So schools can still decide. So if this number goes up over 10 again, it's, they don't have to change their plans each time it goes up unless it really spikes. So if they make a decision about their learning model, they can go with this number. And it's not just the number. They also have, they had to create plans about how they're social distancing, masking, how they're serving meals. All of that comes into play. So this is just one of the components of how they can make decisions about their school. So in fact, we just had a meeting this morning. It's still going on with one of the schools that really wanted to talk through all of their plans with us, as well as looking at the 14-day case rate. So we're still working with the K-12 schools, and oftentimes they'll call and make a request to have a meeting with us and discuss kind of all the things that they're incorporated and how that's going to work in their school system.
Kathy, can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
So that guideline is by county then? Can they break it down into actually school districts, or?
No, they said the number would be not accurate if they broke it down
Because
into
you're not
school
certain of
districts.
locations. Okay.
I did give them just a general idea of the number of cases since we started this in March about, the majority are in Moorhead, and then there's some of the outlying areas have very few cases, but they're looking at it as a whole for the county. So they really want them not to focus on individual school districts, but as a county, what we're seeing.
Right.
They'll also be, paying attention to the Fargo side, just because or one metro area. So they'll be looking at, just as a comparison, how do Fargo numbers look for their reopening of schools?
Kathy, I have a question. for
Yes.
you. Yeah. What is the, as of yesterday, I think I looked at it, what were the number of people that have been tested in the state of Minnesota?
The number
Total
of,
number?
let's see, the reported number of tests, I believe we have.
Didn't it just go over 1 million?
Oh,
I thought
excuse
it
me?
was 2 million.
I think I thought I had the number of people tested in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's on our sheet. It says 1,266,561.
There we go. Thank you.
And then how many have we have tested in Clay County?
We just don't have that number of how many were tested exactly, so,
Because a lot of those have probably been tested over in Cass County.
the majority get tested through Sanford or Sencha. Some through Family Healthcare if they're a patient, or Family Healthcare does a lot of the underserved populations and homeless populations, and so they have a number of people that they're testing there as well. Any questions on the numbers?
So if, on this, kind of to follow up on Commissioner Haney's question, on 8/16, the number of completed tests from Minnesota Department of Health, Public Health Lab was 77, and then the external laboratory tests were 12,613. Would that include Cass County, North Dakota, or are those external laboratories in Minnesota?
External in Minnesota.
So only Minnesota,
Yeah,
okay.
only in Minnesota. Yeah, so they're doing a lot of external labs. North Dakota as well is doing external labs. I know that one of the health facilities is using Mayo Lab in their as a laboratory for their testing. So there's a variety of other external labs that they use as well, both in Minnesota and North Dakota.
So as we move forward and hopefully never have to deal with anything like this again, but if history repeats itself, we should probably be prepared for that. I think it's very important somewhere down the line that there's been a gap in data that we've been able to receive because of the border issue. And I know there's other cities in the state that deal with that, but we need to know, if we ever deal with this, what happens with Minnesota residents and North Dakota laboratories or North Dakota tests. And so, I think we should definitely bookmark that as a conversation piece to figure out how do we get that data. Because, this is great and it's fine, but you're really missing a chunk of our data. And then on the flip side, the North Dakota is getting the reports on a lot of Minnesota residents as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Commissioner Mojo, and we did talk about that with our Red River Valley Task Force. So some of the things, lessons learned and,
Right.
and better processes will be that that information can be shared in a short period of time instead of a lag.
Can I have a follow-up to that? So on our front page of the 2-page where we have the Clay County, where it has the positive cases, so I'm assuming right now that our places in Fargo that do the testing, whether it's Sanford or Essentia, they're only sending positive information to the state of Minnesota. Is that correct?
Now they are sending negative results as well.
Okay, so
they've-
that goes to,
Yeah,
that
they've
can
worked out a
help.
plan, but we aren't getting that, but they've worked out a plan where they're sending the negative results. So for Minnesota Department of Health to sift through all that, it's a very time-consuming, it's not an easy shift over to a
But-
system.
If those negative results are now being reported to the state, I think we should request we want it.
And
And that goes to exactly what Commissioner Moser was talking about, so that we get an accurate idea of how many people from Clay County were actually tested.
right, and they're working on that plan. I've worked with the infectious disease expert and also our epidemiologist that we would like that information. Just takes them a long time to congregate it or aggregate it. So we'll hopefully get that information, and then we'll have more information to share.
Thank you.
I think that it would be very good for us to have this known, what the actual rate of people testing positive in the state of Minnesota and in Clay County is. And just doing the basic
Right.
math, About 1% of the people of Minnesota have tested positive so far. And in Clay County, about 1.2% have tested positive so far.
Right.
But we never hear those stats. Yeah.
Yeah, so good information for us to get from the state and to have to share, so. Also, we talked last week or the week before about the pilot studies. And the 4 states are Florida, California, Minnesota, and North Dakota. So we're the 4 pilot program states that the federal government is going to work with. And they'll work with the state public health department, immunization department, and the state emergency systems to design and execute a plan for this pilot program. They're considering this COVID vaccination to be most likely the largest vaccine campaign that we ever have experienced. So they're going to be working, we don't have any details of that yet, but those are the 4 states that were picked for this pilot program. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. They have determined that we need at least 70% of people vaccinated to develop herd immunity, and that's not an uncommon percentage. We've talked about that before to get the herd immunity. We've talked about that with influenza as well. So 70% of the people in order to develop a herd immunity. So we'll hear more, and as I get more information, there'll be a lot of planning at the state agencies in regards to those pilot programs and how that's going to look. So more to come, and it will be when the vaccine, of course, is available, whether it's the end of this year or the beginning of next year. We'll find out more information as they work through that process.
That's about 217 million people.
That's a lot of people. I think we'll need a pretty large space to get everyone vaccinated in a short period of time. We expect a big lineup for that vaccination. We also have talked about the influenza vaccination, and there's a big push for us also to get that influenza vaccination out to the general public, because we also want them to have that prior to getting the COVID vaccination. So you've probably also heard across the nation that we're seeing clusters of cases as the higher ed is opening up. So we're watching to see how that's working. It's social distancing can be part of that issue, not wearing masks, and of course if they do a point prevalence testing before these students go to higher ed, they're only getting the positive or negative test for that day. So if you don't do the ongoing serial testing, you're not going to be able to track that. So they really are pushing the social distancing and masking, and that seems to be kind of the issue for a lot of these clusters of cases. And then living in the dorms, it just kind of is a setup for not being able to be social distance. So we'll watch as universities open up to see how that's going to play out. We still in Minnesota are not going to be doing a point prevalence testing for higher education. And you maybe have seen on the news where they're doing that in the North Dakota higher eds, but in Minnesota, they are not going to be doing that.
Do the local universities here, are they going to be offering alternative, or is it all going to be in class?
We have not, I think some of it's going to be kind of a hybrid model as well.
Okay.
I've heard through the grapevine that there's going to be some online classes and some in-person classes.
Okay.
So we don't have the very specifics, although we've met with them on a couple of occasions, but they're still working out the details of how they can keep the social distancing and masking with some of those classrooms. So we'll find out more as they open up. There was also some questions previously about the immunity. If you get COVID, what kind of immunity do you have? And CDC initially put out that there was some immunity for 90 days. They've retracted that now, and so they're just saying the science is not showing that you can keep an immunity for 90 days. So they're not giving out a time frame, because we get that question a lot, is how long, if I'm positive, do I have immunity? And the reality is this virus mutates, just like the influenza virus. So it may, your antibodies that you build up, it may not recognize a repeat invasion of the of this virus. So we cannot say with any science backing it that you would have immunity for 90 days. So there's some, like measles, for instance, or chickenpox, that typically lasts a lifetime for immunity, but this family of viruses, like the common cold and COVID, it's just not the same. And so you can, it's maybe unlikely, but you can get COVID a second time. You can test positive even after you've recovered. So we just want to dispel the myth that you actually have this immunity for 90 days. They're not sure. They're still doing more studies on
So-
how long that immunity lasts.
So how do they come up with a vaccine for a virus that continues to mutate?
Well, the same with the influenza virus. You pick the worst strains that can cause the most illness, so the strain that's been circulating, even though it will mutate, it will still provide protection. Just like influenza, if you get the influenza vaccine, you could potentially still get an influenza virus, but it will be a lessened, because some of it is covered, of course. So it protects you. Influenza, they say, it will protect you hopefully from hospitalization and death. And that would be the same with COVID. We're getting they're working
Reduces-
on the virus that will
Reduce the severity.
correct, reduce the severity, exactly right. Yep. Any questions on that?
Just a question, if you have the number of COVID patients in the FM area hospitals?
No, we got that number last week, but they have not provided it this week. That's another thing we're working on with Sanford and Essentia to get us those numbers weekly, so they can provide us with how many are in ICU. I'd like to have the numbers in ICU and the numbers of hospitalized
Yeah.
for our Minnesota numbers. So we're working with the two officials on the Sanford and Essentia side to get those numbers. And we need to get them weekly, hopefully, so I haven't received those yet this week. Any other questions on COVID cases? Okay, thank
right.
you.
We're all set with that. Okay. Then we'll move on to your annual budget presentation for public health. And before we do that, I was just going to announce that Commissioner Grant Weiland is having some medical procedures done this morning, so he will be absent from today's meeting. Okay.
Okay, and I have Carmen with me. She's new. She's been here less than 3 months. It's hard to keep track, so she's really new. So she is my Director of Finance and Administration. So she's just going to jump right in, and so I thought it would be good for you to meet her, as well as she's worked on the budget for this year for public health. So she can maybe answer any questions or fill in gaps as we go along. Now, did you receive a handout, the budget comparison handout? No, oh, Carmen do you have a number of those? Carmen?
Just make sure when you use that microphone, you talk pretty close to it.
Thank you.
Just open this up now. All right. So this is the budget summary that we start with the different categories, and it shows the 2020 budget revenue and expenses and the 2021 budget revenue and expenses, and that's the typical summary. Our budget is quite large, so we summarize it into categories, and hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to understand. So as you look at the administrative part of our budget, the expenses are down a little bit only because we moved some salary to, for instance, my salary goes into that administrative budget, but we moved it down into a COVID program category that we have. So not to be deceived that the expenses are down, it's just a shift of where we have placed some expenses. So otherwise that is, should be about the same. We have association dues and membership in there, insurance, liability, salaries and fringe of a variety of people in the administrative column. And stop me if you have questions. The second column is immunizations, flu, and disease prevention and control. So that is all of the immunizations we provide to the public, including children and adults. The flu vaccine, of course, is in there, and disease prevention and control is anything that may come up. For instance, our tuberculosis patients, so providing medication for those patients, going out to their homes and assessing them. They also come into our clinic, so there's a lot of follow-up on disease prevention and control. So we have so increased quantity of vaccine and the hours that the nurse provides is also the reason there's a little bit of an increase in those expenses from last year. Then we have the disaster preparedness and response. So we have our emergency preparedness grant and our City Readiness Initiative grant. So we received 2 grant funding sources for that. We also have the ambulance cost is in here under the EMS system management. And then we have our COVID program column that we created, of course, this year to track all of our COVID expenses. So we put some expenses in that area as well. So that is salary, and then there's some additional expenses in that COVID line, some health supplies for our mass vaccinations, although we're trying to get those ordered ahead of time, of course, as much as we can. And then the contact tracing expenses, et cetera, are in that COVID column line. So there's a number of expenses, as I've talked about before. We have the contact tracers and case investigators, and there's many variable hour people that are working on those. And we're still working with Minnesota Department of Health. They did not relinquish all of that. They are also providing some of that across the state, but we're taking a great portion of that in our Clay County area.
Kathy, as we do with other budgets and looking at how flooding could affect spikes in budgets and decreases in budgets, I think it'll be important specifically next year because we'll have 2 new commissioners on the board. When we're shifting a large part of payroll to another column just because of CARES dollars and reimbursements and that, it can look confusing. So, I just, obviously we're not going to put like an asterisk on a budget, but I think it should be really well noted that we need to communicate why, on the second page, why other professional fees went down 65% or there's another spike somewhere. 2020 is going to be challenging and looking
Sure.
backwards at it.
Sure, absolutely.
You say you're moving some because of COVID-19 to a different thing in 2021. So we're already anticipating COVID-19 to continue in 2021, or?
Right. We anticipate that we'll have our large vaccine mass dispensing in 2021. Even if we get the vaccine at the end of December, our large community vaccination clinics will happen in 2021.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll have to, secure an area where we can provide that vaccine. We've provided mass vaccinations back when we had H1N1, and we had a location for that, but there wasn't the social distancing and masking that's required. So we need to be looking at other areas where we can really provide the mass distribution. We'll provide influenza mass distribution this year, and then the COVID will be next year. And hopefully we'll get 70% herd immunity, so it won't be ongoing for the whole entire year. So, but we anticipate some costs in that area. And then we do have a little bit of our public health preparedness grant. There's a little bit of decrease in that funding as well from the state. Questions on that area? Our next area is our food pool and lodging inspectors, and the on-site sewage and treatment systems and demolition landfill. So the food pool and lodging, we do receive revenue from our license fees. So that covers all of the expenses in regards to their inspecting of the restaurants, the pools, the lodging, and we have a 1.8 FTE in that area. The on-site sewage treatment systems, we have just a little bit of revenue, and the demolition landfill inspections a little bit, and the county has covered the remainder of those two because we don't have grants for those areas. They used to be in the planning and zoning area, and they came over when the sanitarians moved over to public health.
Kathy, who does the actual landfill inspections on the demolition landfill?
That's Kent, our sanitarian. Yeah, and he has had some special training in those two areas, so beyond the food pool and lodging, he also
So
does
that dollar
those.
amount that's listed there is taking a portion of his salary and applying it to that line? item,
Correct.
is that
Other questions?
No, I got no question. I was just thinking when you were talking about bringing everybody in for flu vaccines and stuff like that, be a good time to do the census thing too, see if they filled out their census forms. I mean, I don't know if that can
Sure.
be combined or not. I don't know whether they're still doing census or not, but it'd be an idea if people haven't filled out census forms yet, to try and get everybody contacted. I'm not trying to be sarcastic about that.
No.
I'm just,
I think it might be a little late, but
maybe.
I think the time period.
I don't know how much they extended that census or not, but, sorry to go off
I
track
don't
here,
know,
but go
but
ahead.
No, I think
if that's the
November.
case, if you're interested, I mean, if that's what you'd like us to do, we can.
Well, I
accommodate
mean,
that.
someone else would have to be there. I mean, I don't know whether you could check there or not, but it's just a thought if you'd like to get 70% of the people in there, I mean, there's bound to be some people who probably haven't filled out forms, so.
Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting, go ahead.
Sure. Okay. The other area is our, we call Healthy Communities, Healthy Behavior. So it's our public health clinic, and that is all of the clinic services we provide. That again includes immunizations, drug screening, various other child and teen checkups that we provide, a variety of other things. So it's really the nurse time, and then we have a support staff in our clinic. Our family home visiting, those are our evidence-based home visiting programs to high-risk families. We have what we call Healthy Families America is one of the evidence-based programs. Nurse Family Partnership is the other one. And then we have our targeted home visiting program. So all of those programs are really reaching the high-risk clients that we serve. So high risk for a variety of reasons, whether they're a high risk because of their just a variety of things, income, social economic reasons, et cetera. So we are serving those clients, and really we're looking at that as that's one of our true prevention models. So if we can serve these families while they're still in their last trimester of pregnancy and equip them with all the skills they may need, both for their own life and for the child's life. So, those are the programs that we reduce. The intent is that we eventually will reduce abuse and neglect down the road, get the family onto economic stability, et cetera. So those are really important programs. We do bill for as much as we can for all of the health systems and all of the revenue that we can produce, but there's always an extra cost to those programs as a prevention program. So some of the funding we receive, much of it goes to those areas.
So are you doing more home visits now that? or you-
We are not doing home visits, but we're connecting on the phone. Because of
Oh,
the
okay.
COVID needs, we can't really do home visits at this time.
That's all right.
But they're connecting with the families, and when they can do a video conference, that's great if they have the ability to do that, otherwise it's by phone. So we're still staying connected. It's clearly much better if you can see this family face to face, but during the COVID, during this pandemic, we really can't do that.
So, excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I? So is there a way, I've called in on conference calls via Zoom on my phone. Is there a way that we could have clients connect that way? I agree with you. I think a face-to-face is helpful, and we need to get creative how we do that.
Yes, if they have the capability to do that, we can on our end. It's just if the clients have the ability to be able to Zoom, then we ask them to do that. Yeah, definitely, because it's really tough if you don't see, the nurses really need to see the interactions to really get a handle on how that family is working with the infant. So it's really not the best scenario. So as soon as we can get back to home visits, we're going to. We may try some outdoor visiting and trying to keep that social distance as long as the weather is good, to see if we can actually get eyes on that family is the best.
So what platforms do you use for video conferencing? Is it Zoom?
We use Teams
Okay.
in the county.
Well, for home visiting. Is
For
that
home
the only
visiting,
plat-
I'm not sure if they use Zoom, most likely because they wouldn't have the Teams unless they can log into the Teams meeting that the county
Right.
supports if the client
So
can log in.
the county, for my, what we've done because of Zoom, I can't access Zoom or Teams as easily on my phone video-wise. So I think that most phones could face chat or, you can do it through a Facebook Messenger platform, Instagram platform. I think as long as they can have an app, most of those are compatible to do. And so I encourage your home visitors to be flexible in any way.
Yeah, and they are. I just don't know what exactly they're using, but yeah, they're very adept at trying to do the best they can in getting a kind of a face-to-face with interaction with those families for sure. So I'm just not exactly sure what platforms they've tried and what has worked best. And then our WIC program, Women, Infant, Children, and of course we have funding that we receive to provide that program. And again, with WIC, the state agency has determined that we can't do face-to-face, and they've extended that through the end of September, so we'll see after that. But they are also doing as much as they can via phone or video conferencing if they can with those families. They're still getting their cards to receive their nutrition supplements, et cetera. We just can't see them face-to-face, so we're not getting, they would normally get weights and hemoglobins on these, on the kiddos, but we're encouraging that through their healthcare systems because we can't see them in the clinic, in the WIC program.
So how are they picking up vouchers?
They're either mailing them
Okay.
or they can do a pickup
Okay.
if they just schedule a place to pick them up at our building. Yeah. So we're trying to accommodate as much as we can to make sure we get those out to them. So whatever works best for them.
Mr. Thank you. Do you recall what your 2019 revenues over expenditures were, or vice versa?
Do you have that, Carmen?
Are you asking for actual or budget?
I'm actual. For 2019, we should have actual by now.
Let's see. I don't have it right.
If you don't have it right now, if you can supply it.
Sure.
Don't need it right at this minute, but I just think as we go through all this.
Absolutely.
And then also, while you're doing that, then I'm assuming in a couple weeks, we're going to get a snapshot of how we're looking in 2020, what we budgeted versus what's actually happening. And that's still going to be important. And then I have, my other question for you is in regards to revenues. Which line items here deal with revenues as it relates to contracts for detox? Is that broken down here?
The detox number, Carmen has that as well, the details of that. So you would like the
So is that
detox-
the 1,560,000 is revenues from detox? That's on the very bottom?
Yeah, the very, the very bottom includes the contract with, that goes through social services. And so-
Well, I'm interested in contracts that
Oh,
would be outside of Clay County.
oh, sure, so any revenue that we're receiving from the VA or Southeast or other counties?
Yeah, the
Sure,
reason I
yes.
asked that, this goes to a conversation that we've had in our CARES group about, what if something happens in detox where you get a mass infection rate in there?
Right,
And, at some point in time, that could force us into lost revenue,
correct,
right?
that's correct.
And so we need to be cognizant of that's entirely possible to happen.
Right,
And then, obviously,
Do you have the
as far as
revenue
we're
for that?
concerned, we want to have that facility for Clay County people before anybody else.
absolutely,
And
right.
we don't want, if we end up with people with COVID, we don't want them sending them into detox.
Right, that's correct. We don't. Do you have the revenue sources for detox? Do you have the Southeast and the contracts? Oh, okay.
Because you do have that other option still available to us too, right, with the hotel issue?
Yeah,
Potentially.
we do. We have
And
it.
those expenses and stuff are all up in the COVID line.
So the hotel expenses are in the COVID line?
Yeah, and I believe we are not anticipating any of that
Yeah.
because we have the grant, so we didn't include any in the
Okay.
budget. Does that answer your question?
And the grant goes, it doesn't go through 2021. And there's an endpoint for that grant for the hotel.
Yeah.
So it goes through February, I believe. So we have through February where we have utilization of that. We haven't used that hotel for, I don't
It's
know.
very minimal, right?
I
Right.
don't think we've used it for 2 months.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
right when I started in June.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, we used it at the very
But-
beginning, but we do bill in detox also. We get the revenue from the other counties. A large revenue portion comes from, if we have the ones that they send in waiting for treatment. So they're on a hold, and so we're able to keep those in our detox as well. And so if they're there for 30 days or 60 days, whether they're from our county or another county, then we receive all that revenue for the daily rate to hold those clients until there's a treatment facility. It's unfortunate because it's not a good facility to hold clients for that long, but there is no other placement sometimes. And if they're out on their own, the chances of getting to the treatment facilities are pretty slim. So we take commitment holds from those other counties. Sorry, I think I jumped into the other.
No, thank you, that's.
Yeah. In school health, as I reported, we have 2 schools that we don't contract with anymore. We had nurses in all of the schools, rural schools. They hired those nurses. So the nurses that were formerly Clay County employees serving the school district are now part of that school district. They're contracting with them on their own. So they are no longer, those school nurses are no longer with us as far as an employee goes. So we're serving DGF and we're serving Uland Hinderdal. So those are the school contracts that we are working with, that we have a school nurse for. In our SHIP program, we have that health promotion area, statewide health improvement program, and that's funding through the state health department for a variety of health initiatives. And that includes Good Food Guidelines is another funding source we have for that. So that funding is the funding we receive for that program. The expenses, it's a wash. There's no, they pay for the entire expenses for all of the salary and benefits of those people that are working in that program area. The health promotion area, that's an area that we utilize a person for our vending. So we have the fruits and veggies vending. We haven't had that for a while during COVID, but that person will provide the, purchase the items, make sure that that vending gets distributed, and they also collect the funds, et cetera. There's no funding source for that. We receive funding through our co-op, but they only pay for some initiatives, but not for a salary. So that person's salary, a little bit of time is in there under the health promotion and health education. Any questions in that area? The next area includes our child and teen checkup. We have an outreach grant that fully funds the people that we have in that outreach program. And then we also provide, and that is a program where we reach 0 to 21 to make sure they're getting in for all of their preventative screenings, et cetera. And we work with a lot of people on medical assistance. And then we also provide child and teen checkups within our clinic. So we do the screenings ourselves in our clinic as well. Refugee health, we receive funding if we work with any refugees in regards to their health screenings. Detox is in here, and we can get you all those revenue sources that you've requested. And then our adult health program, that encompasses all of the case management service that we provide in multiple areas. So that's a large program area. We produce the revenue as much as we can. We tap into all the sources of revenue that are possible for that area, but there's still a little bit of a gap in the revenue and expenses. So we have a little bit of money that we request for that ongoing program area. We did, as you recall, at the beginning of this year, you had approved additional positions that we incorporated in, and so there's some revenue that covered some of those, but not completely. So that was about $80,000 that was additional expenses for those positions, and that was at the beginning of this year. You approved that in January. So that was for our 2020 budget. So we had those additional expenses that of course carry over. So our total request, as you can see on the bottom, is that 1.3.
You had asked for the amount for 2019, it's roughly $862,000.
How much?
Roughly $862,
Revenues over expenditures?
expenses over rev.
Expenses over.
Yeah, so that would have been our ask to you, roughly. Is about what we would have gotten from the county.
And we typically have used in the past number of years, not last year, but we've used, our reserve, but we don't have any reserve anymore. So that typically was used to balance those requests. No additional employees other than the additional ones that you had approved at the beginning of the year. So we don't have any additional requests for 2021 for new hires. Any other questions on that? The detox We talked about that new withdrawal management license that we had been working on for the last couple years, but due to COVID, we put a halt on that. It would be pretty impossible, based on the facility that we have, to think that we can take on that additional licensure. Although it's just on hold, we still intend to do that, but it's been a real challenge with detox when they had to reduce the numbers. We have a capacity of 16, but we had to reduce that to 10 during the peak of our pandemic and what we were seeing in our county, because we just didn't have the ability to keep both the clients and our staff safe and be able to social distance. So, but we're back up to accepting the 16 bed, the number of clients that we can take. So, and hoping to keep everybody safe and not seeing that virus in our detox program. Other questions that I've confused you about? Our Clearway funding for tobacco prevention ends this year, so we don't anticipate any additional Clearway funds after 2020, unless they allocate some funding through our statewide health improvement program for tobacco funds, or if we receive any additional grant sources for that.
Okay, anything in addition? No further questions for her? Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah,
Carmen.
thank you.
And welcome aboard, Carmen.
Thank you.
Do you have any?
Pardon?
Do you have any further questions, or?
No, thank you for what you do.
Okay, with that, we'll go into the garage rental lease with a productive alternative. Joe Olson and Gabe, I guess, you're gonna help with us with that? If you're gonna use that mic there, Joe, get close to that one, please.
Okay, sounds good. Morning. You want me to start? Okay. Well, I have Gabe here. I think this partnership kind of started, a couple of years ago. We're sharing a space up north right now. We used to have the maintenance. We use that space for we use it for our changeover of our seasons equipment and everything. So Gabe needed more space, so me and him moved in together, and basically now it's come to the point, I think, where we're out of space and we're pretty crunched in there, basically. Right now we rent currently I think it's 1,140 square feet garage to the Productive Alternatives, and it's the one that's currently right next to Gabe's two other stalls that the Sheriff's Department has. So we're requesting to terminate that lease and have Gabe, the Sheriff's Department, take over that spot, and then we would then take back over the other one.
Essentially, it'll
Yeah.
free up the space he's using. It'll get the emergency management stuff out of there, so Joe has his entire garage stall, and it gives emergency management in the sheriff's office better access to. So what I'm using Joe's for now is sandbags, which we have several pallets of sandbags, emergency shelter supplies, so like cots, things like that if we had to stand up a shelter, and pallets of pet porters, which are also, if we stand up a shelter, we have to provide sheltering for pets. So we have pallets of those, and we've essentially run out of space, and the sheriff's office has two stalls up there on the north end, and we've outgrown those, so we don't have space to move those into there. And the issue comes into, and if we have an emergency and I need to get sandbags out, seasonally, Joe, like in the winter, will have, the picnic tables and whatnot that are found around the county campus in there, and it's kind of a logistical nightmare to have to unload all of that stuff, or if I need to get cots out, So I guess we both just kind of outgrown our
Yeah.
spaces.
Yeah, yeah, when we added the 2 new boilers, we lost a little bit of space down in our shop, so we've kind of reorganized and we bring a lot of stuff up north that is seasonal, so it's kind of how we've come to need a little more space, so. If this was approved, it would be a $6,600 decrease in the maintenance portion of the revenue. So we talked to Lori and figured it would be, how she'd like to see that as more of a, instead of taking money from Gabe's budget, moving it over, it would just be a revenue decrease in my budget for that, so. PA has been, George has reached out to PA,
Right.
talked to PA about it, they're fine with it. I think 60 days would take us into November. They're requesting, they'd like to be out by August 31st. That would be good with you guys. So, and if that's the case, 2020 budget, then we would be down $2,200 for the 2020 budget, and 2021 would be $6,600.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead.
What does PA stand for again?
Productive alternatives.
Yep.
What does that mean?
It's a company, they have a bus service. I don't know if they haul clients in their buses. It's a couple mini buses they store in there. I'm not exactly sure what they're.
Yeah, they just, what we know is they have 2 buses that they store in this garage, and that's,
Yeah, I don't know how long ago that relationship began where they rented out the facility. It's
It's an entity, Jim, that does, alternative learning too and things like that, and, they,
yeah, and we've had Georgia has, also works with them. They lease in the Family Service Center too, so Georgia's been in contact with them well in advance to have some conversations with them, so it's not, they weren't blindsided.
All right, we're not leaving them high and dry.
Right, they're
Right.
totally fine with what's
Okay.
happening, so.
Mr.
I would,
Chair?
oh,
Sorry. Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. In terms of the revenue decrease, I think in reality, because it is, one of our departments that needs it, and, unfortunately, we'll be losing a tenant there, but the other option is to have to build something that would cost more money probably in the end. So I'm definitely in support of the collaboration to do this.
I move approval of the request.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Kevin, second by Jenny. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, would that be waiving the 60-day waiting period of the contract, allowing them to get out
My
at the
motion
end?
would
If
be,
they're okay with, excuse
my
me.
motion would be to have it be whatever is acceptable to productive alternatives.
Both parties. My second includes
Okay,
it.
Yeah, so that date was August 31st that they requested.
okay, that motion was amended that it's okay with, whatever is okay with a productive alternative, they work it out with them.
Yep.
If waiving it 60 days is okay with them, let's do it. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
get her done. Mark, you're gonna talk to us about approval of equipment purchases through the CARES Act for meeting support.
Yeah, good morning,
Good morning, Mark.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yes, I'm here to request authorization to spend some of the CARES Act funds that we have received to support, directly support COVID-19 related activities. One of the things we'd like to do is be able to provide the capability to stream meetings live that are not held in this room. Like later this morning, we're gonna be having a press conference and we'd like to be able to stream it, right? We can record it now, but we don't have the capability to stream it. So that, we're asking for the equipment that's gonna take to do that. We're also asking for some equipment to, we want to put together a big portable meeting cart so we could roll it into this room specifically, so you could have members participate remotely or however it might happen to be used. But it's one of the things we've learned over the last few months that we just didn't have the capability of. And then the last thing we're asking for is a new cutter. We produce a lot of signage, our department does, specifically for doors, and I don't know if you've been around the campus lately, but we have a lot of signage out, and our cutter is not cutting it.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, I had to do that
That
one.
was good.
Thanks. So anyway, we're asking for $14,500 take care of those things.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
These items have definitely been vetted through the CARES Act committee, of which Commissioner Campbell and I serve on. One item that I may just touch on is because of our limiting access to people to the courthouse for meetings, it's become, in my eyes, a limitation to allow citizen input, and the opportunity to have the Solid Waste Advisory Council meeting or commission meeting, or the Planning Commission meeting, or Board of Adjustment, or any of the variety of meetings that could be allowed to be streamed to the public is very important to continue, no matter what COVID does. I think it's kind of the new age in how we get information to citizens, and I definitely support this. I think I'm thankful that we have CARES Act funds to do it. I think that it's definitely needed.
Is that like a motion?
Yeah, that is, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to approve all three of the requests in the total of $14,500 to come out of the CARES Act funds.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Jenny, second by Jim, to authorize $14,500 for the CARES Act for these materials. Any further discussion?
Maybe just for the commission's knowledge, Steve, which one of those 6 areas these funds will be coming out of?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, these items would be coming out of our infrastructure category. And so we're in the process, as we make purchases, we'll be bringing documentation each week to show you where that funding is allocated and how it's been allocated. So.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, we got a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Mark.
And you'll get that all set up for us then. Okay, with that, we'll go into the CARES COVID-19 relief grant. Steve and Mark are gonna taking us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As you recall, last Tuesday, I came before the board on behalf of our coronavirus committee requesting permission to have the application for our relief grant to go live as of yesterday morning at 9 o'clock. Due to time constraints and the complexity of planning, we asked this board to approve that ahead of time, with the understanding we would come back for further discussions this week. And so before I start, I would be remiss if I did not thank Mark and his staff. What they've done over the last 10 days has been absolutely remarkable. What would normally take weeks and months to do, they worked together as a team. Long hours, whatever we needed. Our last change happened Friday at about 4:15, and they just have done an excellent job of getting this up to our citizens as of yesterday. So what we wanted to do is just go through the process a little bit, and Mark has been, as I mentioned, integral in this preparation, so I'm going to turn it over to Mark here.
Okay, so for those businesses or people that are in Clay County that want to apply, first the simplest thing to do is our main Clay County website, claycountymn.gov. Right on the front page under the spotlight is a big green box that says CARES Act applications open. When you click on it, it'll take you to a page that tells the whole story of what it means and how to do it. There is some really useful information here. I suggest that everybody reads through it. And in the grant application section, which is just down a little bit, it will explain exactly the paperwork that's required to complete the grant. So it's got a list right there, so you can prepare ahead of time, and it's pretty minimal what we're asking for. There's at the bottom of this page, there's also a link to a frequently asked questions page where we've put together, along with the folks from City of Moorhead, all the questions that we could think of. And actually, when it's printed out, it's 13 pages long, so there's a lot of questions that are answered. We've had a few questions come in the last 2 days, and all of them I was able to just copy and paste things from the frequently asked questions and send them back. So if you have a question, look there. It's a really good resource. We have put together besides the frequently asked questions, we have a email address and a phone number that you can contact. The phone number is not actually answered by a person, but you can leave a voicemail and we'll get to it as soon as we can. So we will provide the answers or whatever help you might need. We'd like to get people through that.
Mark, if I can
go ahead.
just real briefly, so where you talked about what the applicant will need, it's really good for them to review all those things and have those, because once they start the application process, it's not something that they can save and go back to later. Is that, so once you start it, you got to finish it. So unlike some applications, when things you do, you can save it and come back to it later. This does not have the capability to do that.
Right.
So I guess for the person who's doing the applying, I'd hate to see them get 2/3 of the way through and find out they don't have the information, and that they run out of time at that moment to do it, and then they got to go back and start over.
And they'll have to go back and do it over because
Yeah.
it won't remember it.
Can you print out that app then, or and fill it out? And
No,
no.
it's online, but you
It's
can
an
print
online.
out the information and have next
Yes.
to you as you're applying.
Right. And so I'll show you. So there's some specific things that are required for this, for certain categories and things. And we have, the application's actually divided in two pieces. The first part you come to is this page here, which is called the eligibility or minimum requirement section. First thing I point out to everybody is we have the capability to translate this application into any language. Right at the very top, there's a big button that says select language. So if English is not your primary language, you could pick a different one and it will display it. So as you go through these questions, it just basically asks,
excuse me, on that primary language. So if they write it in a different language, when you get it, does it go back to the other language again?
yeah,
Yes.
yes. It automatically, the submissions to us will be in English, but they could fill it out in French or whatever they might care.
I think
I
I
think
need that
just-
app on my phone. I can talk to
Right.
anybody.
I think just also to note, our entire website is available to translate as
Right.
well.
Now, one thing I should mention is there's actually two different programs running at the same time. One is for businesses located inside the city limits of Moorhead, and the other one is for outside the city limits of Moorhead. Ours is for those businesses not inside Moorhead, for the rest of the county. So the very second question here is going to ask, are you inside or outside Moorhead city limits? If you say yes, it's going to pop up a big red thing here that says, oh, you need to go over to this other site and it'll help you go there. And then you fill out it's basically the same questions, it's just at Moorhead's. If you say no, then it gives you the next questions, and then you can answer these as you go through them. And they're basically the ones that are required for us to meet the rules of the grants.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
The question in regards to the city of Moorhead, we, Commissioner Campbell and the rest of the committee worked very hard with the city of Moorhead, but also with all the other cities in Clay County to produce a collaborative package that would treat all businesses equally so that we could get everyone the same opportunity. And so I really appreciate that all of those cities came to the table to figure out how best we work together with a limited pot of money to address all of the businesses in Clay County. So thank you to all of those cities.
So once a business goes through these first 5 questions, and if they are eligible for the grant, then you get this big thing that says go to the next page. And what it's actually doing is going to a whole other surveys for some browsers, and it actually says this right on the page. It will pop a box up that says, are you sure you want to leave? And you say, yeah, I'd like to leave. And it actually explains that on there. Then you get to the rest of the questionnaire, and this is a few pages long, and you go through it, and it'll ask the questions like, you know, where's your business located? What's the name of your business? How many employees? All those types of questions we need to fulfill the grant. Once the applicant gets to the end, there'll be a couple things. One, they have to check a box that says they certify everything is correct, and then there's a signature box that's actually a legally binding signature, so it's actual legal document. And then they have to submit the form. So the form isn't stored anywhere until hit the submit button. So anytime they quit through the process, they're gonna have to go back through it until they hit submit. And at the end, when they hit submit, it's going to pop up on the screen, says, thank you, your form's been submitted. And they'll get an email back from us that says, it's actually got a copy of their submission, and then actually we have text in that email that basically outlines the process for them. So they have a little idea what's happening. And it basically says you're just gonna get reviewed, then there'll be a panel, and then they'll distribute the funding later. So they get a little thing that helps, so they know that one, it's been submitted, and two, what's gonna be happening.
But they can't get a copy of their form
Yes.
anytime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
can.
will.
When they submit it, they'll get a PDF with it all completed, so
Yep.
they'll have a completed copy of it.
Okay,
That
very
they
good.
can print out and keep, or whatever they wanna do. Yes, once
Thank
they
you.
hit submit, it changes it into that format.
I got a question. The pool of money is $2.25 million for Clay County, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Haney. And that relates to the small business. We also have an additional $250,000 for nonprofits of that are specifically 501c3s and 501c19s.
But I was referring to the small business.
Yes,
portion of it.
yes.
So is there a board that's going to determine which businesses get how much?
Mr. Chair, I may answer that. We do have representatives from cities that will be reviewing the complete applications. It is our intention that if you meet the eligibility requirements, you will be approved.
But at what level? It says, what, up to $10,000?
Correct. That, what we will do is, once all of the applications come in at the end of the application period, we will determine the amount based on the applications. So there is a sole proprietor piece that's up to $3,000. The businesses and nonprofits eligible are up to $10,000, but that is determinant of the amount of applications that we receive.
Okay.
Okay, but nobody will know whether they receive it or not till after September 31st.
They'll know if they qualified.
Right. So
September 30th?
September, we're taking applications up until September 7th. Yes.
Oh, September 7th.
Yeah.
So
Excuse
what
me.
we'll be doing in the meantime, our staff will be, we're gonna be reviewing these applications to make sure they're complete and all the parts are there. So we have steps we'll do, and we can actually flag them if we say, oh, they did something, or there's something on there that they're ineligible, we can tell them that, and we'll send them an email saying, you're ineligible, you can either reapply, or if you think you made a mistake or whatever. And then once we've determined they are eligible, they'll get an email that says it actually says that your small business application has qualified, is all they get told. So they're not, because at that point in time, we still don't know what kind of funding we'll have, but that means that they've met the requirements for the grant. So they'll get some notification from us. How fast those comes, we don't quite know yet, because we are still learning this process. And it's gonna depend on how many we get and how fast they come, but we'll try to work through them as quickly as we can. We're still hoping to have everybody know whether or not they're getting funds by early September.
The goal was for, depending on the category that you're in, whether you're a small business or sole proprietor, that the goal is that all of the qualifying businesses will receive equal amounts. And so that cannot be determined.
Okay.
That cannot be determined until we know how many applicants there are.
Gotcha.
And once that's done, then ultimately, before any checks can go out, all of that information will have to come before this full board for approval for distribution.
Okay, now,
But to answer your question, there will not be a board picking winners and losers in this.
Either you qualify or you don't.
Yep, it's,
Right.
you
Then
meet the qualifications based on this, and if you get a complete application, you're approved for funds up to be determined.
Okay. And then one other thing that I was questioning was, the question is on there, is your business registered with the Secretary of State? I think there's some confusion there, at least there was in my part. I have a sales tax number, I have a tax number, I have a tax ID number rather, but I don't know if I've ever registered with the Secretary of State. Would I have had to have done that in order to obtain a tax ID number?
Yes.
Okay?
And you would not have had to have that as of March 1st, but as long as you're within standing, if you went and received that information at any point prior to putting in your application, you'd then be eligible.
Right. And on our application, it's actually got a link to take you there if you want to look it up yourself.
Okay.
It's right there. It's also in the frequently asked questions section.
And we've participated in webinars as a committee that they've gone through that, and it's a very easy process. It's quick.
Got a feeling as a business, if you pay taxes, you're in.
So, you know, Commissioner Haney, part of, you know, and you're not the only one who's been confused in this, because under the state grant application that was done, that was a requirement that you had to be in good standing under the distribution for the state. I think it was up through deed, wasn't it?
Yeah, through deed, as of March 1st. Yep.
Yeah, and so you had to be in good standing, but it was later determined, you know, and I think West Central Initiative brought that up to us, that there are some entities that are not required to file with the Secretary of State to be in good standing. So there's some kind of gray area there. I think our goal is to, if somebody isn't in good standing, to let them know that they still have the opportunity to, if it's something that under state regulation they're supposed to be required to do, they'd have time to do it and still then qualify. So.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I would make note that, as Mark mentioned, we have two separate programs, moreheadcares.com and our program, but the funding from our business plan is going to be made available also to cities, to the city of Moorhead and their businesses.
So for those businesses out there in Clay County, first my suggestion would be if you were adversely affected by COVID, you should apply, and we'll figure it out. If you know, we'll try our best. And then the other thing I've been trying to, we say this several times in our documentation, we want you to know that official correspondence from us is only going to come from two email addresses, either at covid.relief@claycountymn.gov or noreply@seamlessdocs.com. And we list that several places because there's been a lot of issues with people getting hacked, basically saying, oh, you need more documentation, but it's not coming from us. So we're very clear on what email addresses you'll see our communications come from.
So those
I
three.
think we just have to do a little bit of clarification, Steve, on what you just said, though.
Sure.
So the businesses within Moorhead are applying through Moorhead's website.
That's correct.
And once all of their businesses' applications are come in, you know, those numbers we're gonna find out what those numbers are, and then we're gonna find out in the rest of the county what those numbers are. And again, our goal is that every business in Clay County will have the opportunity to get the same dollar amount, whether you're in the city of Moorhead or outside the city of Moorhead. And so that's where, you know, we will be working with Moorhead. And again, it's going to be dependent on the number of applications.
Can we transfer funds between the two, Moorhead and Clay County?
No. Well, not yet.
Yeah, through this process, what will happen when it comes to the distribution point, the city of Moorhead will actually provide, through our collaboration, the Clay County is going to be sending the checks out to both programs. And so at some point, the city of Moorhead will provide their funding to Clay County so it can be distributed to our businesses.
Well, I was just thinking if Moorhead had more applications than Clay County does. I mean, Clay County didn't use up all the money. Moorhead is in Clay County.
Yes.
They would still qualify would they still qualify under Clay County?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may, our application period is 1 week longer than the city of Moorhead, and part of doing that is, you know, I think we wanted to make sure that we gave people ample amount of time to apply, but also Moorhead is having the opportunity, based on their panel who are reviewing the applications, to see what the numbers are coming in at, and if there is more need in the city of Moorhead than we estimated, or if the applications come in more, we'll have the ability to evaluate what the totals will be. And so maybe that means that Clay County will help cover some of those, but That's part of the close collaboration. Definitely, there's another large pot of dollars that are definitely going to, not within the small businesses, but that Clay County will be allocating to benefit all areas of the county. And so we are really invested in making sure those dollars go to help the most people in the county.
Those three sites or whatever, you said that they can, if you don't get an email from any of these three, are they listed in that?
Yes,
They are, okay.
we list them several times, so hopefully they'll see where the official communication is gonna come from.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'd also note that in addition to the Clay County website, our citizens have the ability to access this link through the city of Barnesville, Glendon, Dilworth, and Hawley's city email, or city website. And so that will link them into this application process.
So, if you're a city, well, Dilworth or Barnesville, if you're living in that city, do you apply to the city or do you apply to the county?
The link is based on, the link is at the county, but the other cities have tied that into their home pages. So if you don't really know where to go to the city of Dilworth, and there's a link there that will connect you into this.
Great. And the very first question we ask is, what city are you located in, if you are? And that's to help us with that. So we're collecting all the, outside the city of Moorhead, we're collecting everything, and then we'll work with the cities if they are participating with us, yes.
Okay. Got some more? Gone through the
Any
whole
additional
thing?
questions at all?
Well, all I can recommend is that if you've got these businesses out there or nonprofits are out there, here's a good opportunity to get paid for some of the stuff that you had to do because of COVID, and do we give examples of something like what you could apply for as a business? This is some of the things I had to do, signage I had to put up, or something I had to buy. As a restaurant, I had to buy tables to put outside, or
Yeah, we list all that stuff, I don't remember where.
You have use of funds there.
Yeah, you can use the funds specifically, so once we give you the money, you can use it for payroll expenses, rent, mortgage payments, utility bills, licenses, other similar expenses that have occurred since March. And in the regular course, so pretty much everything you've spent, you could apply it back towards if you had to.
Well, I mean, when you say mortgage payment, rent, you would have had that whether you had COVID-19 or not, wouldn't you?
Right?
Well, the problem though with a lot of these is they were forced shut. And so they were making these payments with no revenues. So that's part of why that piece qualifies for.
Okay.
Is a business location a requirement, correct? You have to have a specific business location.
Right.
You can't qualify with just a Facebook page and a cell phone.
Correct, you
Right.
have to have a
Okay.
physical presence in Clay County.
But someone with a business in their home,
Home businesses are not.
Only daycares.
Daycare, only daycare.
Licensed
Okay.
daycares.
I mean, I'm just going through that thing when it says utility bills. A lot of places, the utility bills are lower, wouldn't they?
Well,
Well, I think it goes
I mean,
back-
you've got it listed, I guess. I hate to pick that apart, but I'm just trying to say,
well, I think, if I may, Mr. Chair, we have pretty good guidelines based on Minnesota Management and Budget that we've been provided, that we're also providing links on there. A lot of these businesses have applied for some of the deeds grants that were out there, the PPE grants, so they know the parameters. But when you have government that issued executive orders restricting business to operate or thrive, for that matter, the government imposed a lot of hardship on these businesses. And so I get well, you had a mortgage payment, so technically it shouldn't qualify, or bills or whatever. But when income was virtually limited. That's the type of thing that are eligible expenses.
I was just wanting to know, I hate to repeat, like loss of revenue, is that on there?
Yeah, loss of revenue from March 1st through July 29th is the timeframe. And if businesses can show that they lost a difference of 10%, but from year to year, they would be eligible.
Okay, all right,
So,
thank you.
Mr.
I hate
Chair-
to ask question, I mean, but.
It's
Mr.
important.
Chair,
Just sort
so all of the qualifying reasons that would qualify you for this, they're all listed as part of the application process, and as Mark said, when you get down to the end of it, you sign on the dotted line that says that you're meeting those criteria. So, and they have the opportunity to look to see what all the different things are, and if there's any question about them, there's always a spot where they can go to the frequently asked questions, or they can actually even email that site, right? To ask a question while you're still in the process of doing your online application.
Okay. I guess I just want to make it available to people, make sure they know about it, and, you know, not for some people to say, oh, I won't qualify anyway, you know, I'm just trying to bring out different situations that they would qualify on,
Right.
so.
I would hope that most businesses would go look and go through it, and if they're not, you'll tell you, or as you answer the questions, you go, oh no, that doesn't apply to me, so. But
I would, you're right, I
Rather than
really would
try.
want to encourage people to apply for this, yes.
yes,
It's available to them. You know. Okay, any further comments? Well, thank you so much for giving us that presentation, and would encourage people to look at that, go on the website and look at the application and whatever. You got some more stuff on that?
I do, well, I have the next agenda item.
Oh, you're just waiting for that, huh? Well, we're gonna take a break, no, okay. Okay, thank you, Mark. The next thing we've got is the panel per diem request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned during the previous agenda item, when it comes to the review of the application process, it will not only just be Clay County employees, but we have asked our city as part of our collaboration to offer people within their communities to be part of the review panel. And so what we are requesting this morning, while we do not anticipate a great deal of in-person meetings, what we are requesting is that through the initial process of getting everyone together, providing the clear expectations for their review process, we may be looking to bring that committee together in person or virtually. And we're requesting the board that a $50 per diem and mileage would be assigned to the persons serving on the CARE Small Business COVID Relief Grant Application Review Board.
So how big would this board be? Is that the ones that are presently on the board, or is that?
No, Mr. Chair. We have 5, well, I shouldn't say that. Right now, we have three people within the community that will be participating in addition to Darren Brook and Mark Sloan. So we have
We're not anticipating it would be larger than 8 to 10 people, though. It depends really on the amount of applications that we get in.
Okay. Very good.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation with the note that the funding would be provided through the Federal CARES Act dollars.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Cheney, second by Kevin to provide per diem for people on the panel.
And also then to note which pillar that would come out of.
This would fall underneath administrative fees under our CARES business relief program.
Okay, we'll add that to the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All righty. Okay, with that, I see Jim is here. We're going to go into the financial allotment request for the Clay County Fair Board. Welcome, Jim.
Good morning, thank you. First off, I just want to thank the commissioners for their past support and all the support we do get during the fair. And so with this, everybody realizes this was a difficult year for the fair board. We had to make a decision to cancel the fair or postpone it, whichever way you want to look at it, for this year due to the COVID concerns. And so with that, we had originally, I think earlier for the fiscal year 20 budget had been approved for the $25,000 plus the public employees liability insurance premium. So we just put the letter together, basically explaining kind of how we would be looking at using some of those funds if the commission decides to allocate those entire dollars to us. Because at the timing of the year, there had been some expenses already incurred for this fiscal year. And then we also have expenses such as sanitation, post office box rent, county fees, fair association dues. 2020 fair convention had already occurred, so those expenses have been paid. Advertisements, maintenance, maintaining the buildings and grounds, insurance, general repairs, special assessments, utilities, and then we do have a lawnmower payment. So those expenses are, expenses we're going to have whether we have the fair or not. And then we have received about $14,000 of income at this point to help offset some of that from some ground rental or donations, storage income. We did put a plan in place that we've already helped the 4-H program. They had to go to virtual shows, and 4-H had determined they weren't going to work with paying premiums to the 4-H members. So as a board this year, we decided that every member that participated in the virtual shows, we would pay them $10 essentially a premium, just to kind of help offset some of their expenses and help with that 4-H program.
Can I just interrupt a little bit? Just to ask, I don't know, probably a dumb question, but would they qualify under the CARES Act for any of these funds? Are you a 501(c)(3) or,
Yeah.
okay? Just a thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, go ahead.
And so then that was part of it. We just wanted to keep the youth involved. And then we've just got some needed repairs out there. We've painted the horse barn, which was much in need of paint. We did use our Minnesota Department of Ag grant that we do annually to pay a portion of that painting. The main 4-H exhibit building, the main building when you come into the grounds, we do have an estimate to paint that building. It's a big brick building, it's a big job. The guy who painted the horse barn has given us a very favorable estimate on that, as long as we do it this year. So and then we've got just some other, if you want to call it deferred maintenance, that doesn't always get done that we'd like to complete this year, being we didn't have a fair. So that's kind of where we're at as far as just requesting those dollars. Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I've been in pretty close contact with James and the Fair Board President, Mr. Rader, and a couple other of the members throughout the summer. It's been a difficult summer for the Clay County Fair, and I think it's important to note that you were carefully considering whatever alternative you could, but really the restrictions that were imposed almost made it impossible to do something. So I appreciate that you've come back with the second kind of piece to justify some of the funds and where you've allocated. And I think this year is a unique year, even though there wasn't a fair. There are needs that exist out there that have been difficult to do with budgets in the past. And so this may be a year, as you say, to do some significant maintenance that budgets haven't allowed. It's a need that will have to happen at some point, and if it's not addressed this year, it will definitely be an ask that the Fair Board will need to ask in the next 5 to 10 years to maintain the integrity of what those buildings are. I want to mention that I think what you did to the 4-H and FFA kids to allow premium payments is important to recognize their work, even though there wasn't a standard fare. I think that really is important. But my question is, I know there are some water issues out there. If approved for these funds, will that be addressed? Isn't there like $2,000 to $3,000 in water issues that you need to?
And I'm not up to speed on those necessarily, but I think, last I heard that, I think the city of Barnesville is covering a lot of that.
Okay, all right.
With some of that issue that was
Okay.
addressed, but yeah, we would be addressing anything else that we need to address out there. Another thing we're looking at, whether we can get it done, I don't know if we can get it done this year, but the 4-H food stand does have some roof issues.
Understatement.
Not just shingling,
Yeah.
but the roof is starting to sag a little bit, so I mean, those are some of those things, if we can, have some funds, that would be part of some of those improvements we would be looking at doing. Of course, we're always gonna offset with, if, our donation program wasn't just, we just decided we weren't gonna go out and ask businesses to donate during COVID, and they've got their own issues that they're dealing with this year, but we did start a good donation program last year that helped offset some of those expenses, but, any opportunity we have to rent out the grounds or get some income off of that, we're gonna continue to do that to, help offset our budget and put towards those improvements.
So just to understand, between item number 9 and item number 10, now you're asking for additional funds for this year's budget? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, those are two separate items. What we have James here this morning to do is just talk to the board first about the request for this year that was made last year, and whether or not the board would like him to receive those funds. And the second agenda item is for him to talk about what his request is for 2021.
21.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
So on your page 2 of your report,
Okay.
the very last paragraph, it has been projected that the fair will have incurred fixed costs of $23,884, whether the fair is held or not. Is that number still accurate?
Yeah, some of those necessarily wouldn't be fixed costs, but they were costs like the convention is held in January every year.
Okay.
So
And-
the expenses we've had this fiscal year so far, yeah.
Does that money include what you paid out to 4-H?
I don't think that included because we hadn't made a plan when I originally submitted this back in June.
That was on the July 27th letter.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think what we did do, it ended up, we paid about $1,000 for the 4-H program.
So just for the board's information, I know historically, part of the county board's contribution to the fair was also to allow a free gate for parking, right?
Free gate.
Free gate,
Free gate.
The parking.
Yeah.
charge for parking.
Oh, yeah, free gate, yeah, that's right, free gate, but yeah, you charge parking, but it allowed for free gate for everybody to go in there, and that was part of why the county boards in the past, part of where that money was to offset so that our citizens wouldn't have to pay the gate to get in, yeah, okay. I didn't know if our commissioners were all aware of that or not, so,
I wasn't.
yeah.
It's the best
And
ticket in town.
We continue to offer that free gate, and there's never been any discussion to change that. I think that's a big plus up there. And the parking, for the most part, is,
There's a lot of it
Great deal.
off-street too.
yeah, there's a lot of off-street, but I mean, it's $2 a day to park it.
Yeah.
So it's, try to keep as much of that as economical as possible to keep the families coming and just making it an economical fare for everybody to.
Well, I appreciate James coming in. I texted you last week when you were on your family vacation and basically said, I put you on the agenda for Tuesday. If you can please give a report to the commission, do so. I want to say that from someone who most summers spends the vacation out at the Clay County Fair. The commitment by the Board of Directors is, can be compared to none other service that I observe countywide. I thank you to all of the directors for what they do out there, for their continuing investment in making the Clay County Fair great. 2021 will be even better. I know that, but from my standpoint, I think that there are needs, fixed and otherwise, that justify the need to continue with the 2020 allotment request. So I would make a motion to approve that.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion by Jenny, second by Jim to approve the $27,259 allotment. Is this in addition to what we already given?
No, but I think it's important that we make a motion to address it after knowing now that the Clay County Fair did not happen.
Okay.
So we're approving what
So,
was
Mr.
allotted.
Chair, this board approved this allocation as a part of the 2020 budget. What James is doing is just asking that that payment be made even though the fair did not happen.
Oh, okay, very good. Well, all of a sudden the light came on, thank you. All right, any further discussion? Okay, we got a motion for, to allow the allotment to the Clay County Fair Board for $27,259. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, now
I
we'll
think
go on. Oh,
maybe
excuse
just
me.
as a side note that any major issues, if you could address with those funds to avoid spikes in the future for maintenance, would be definitely appreciated, so thank you.
We will do that. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go on to your request, not request, just your budget presentation for 2021.
I had sent a letter in on July 27th to Steve, and that just kind of talked a little bit about our budget request. And then, if you want, we've actually got the 2021 proposed budget we have, if you want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you got copies of that, please.
Like in the past, we've received $25,000 plus the public liabilities insurance premium for many years, as long as I know. We, as a fair board, are trying to always revamp some things, bring in some new entertainment. Last 2019, we brought in a modified tractor pull, which was very well, it was well attended, and we didn't cover our cost on that, and we do that probably the first year. So we're trying to bring in some new activities for families. We are trying to bring in activities for young families, as far as some of the arts activities, some of the stuff. We've got a gal who used to be from Clay County, I think she's in Louisiana now, who comes up every year to do art activities in our open class building. And that can vary from painting classes to the last few times she's been up, she has done pottery. We're trying to bring on some different entertainment, some bigger name entertainment as far as free stage entertainment. And then just providing some additional activities. An activity we did a couple years ago was NDSU did their barbecue boot camp. We'd like to get something back like that because we get asked every year about that. And just with some of those things and bringing various activities, trying to keep the buildings maintained and all those things, we are asking for an increase for $29,000 plus the public liability insurance. And I do have, like I said, the budget in front of you. On the income side, we did not, if you're looking at our 3-year average, most of our income is staying pretty close to that. We did increase the county municipal aid, which in addition to county commissioners, we do get from the city of Barnesville and the Barnesville EDA. We do get some proceeds there. The other things that we did increase over the 3-year average is probably our donations. We did implement a sponsorship program in the 2019 fair. Between that and the townships of Clay County provided some good financial support, so that 19,000 on that line item is the same as basically what it was in 2019. And then some of our other revenue we get every year, and that's increased this last year. We do get a grant from the Minnesota Department of Ag. It's a county fair grant, and part of that is to provide for ag education of some kind. That could be repairing of buildings, and it can only be used for the ag portion of the fair, so we can't use it on the grandstand, we can't use it on the 4-H building, we can't use it on like bathroom and those type of things. But we do get those proceeds. We also do get an arts grant of about $4,000 is the number they're using for next year, and that helps us to bring in entertainment. It covers part of our entertainment. We try to bring in some other entertainment, so there's additional money there. And then our space rentals is just the vendors during the fair, and then our rents, we have a storage income program, and then a little bit of camping we get out there, and then the Barnesville High School rents the football field each year. The state aid down there, that is basically about $6,000 we get, and you'll see below we have about $14,000 we pay out roughly in premiums, and the state of Minnesota has a program where they reimburse us a percentage of that, and it's about $6,000 a year. So we're looking at a projection in 2021 of about $152,996 as far as proposed income. It's above the 3-year average, but it is also pretty similar to what we were in 2019. I guess when I'm looking at budgeting, unless it's something we try not to project too high on our income, because we've had these 3 years has had some really good weather. We know one of those years it's going to either be really hot or really rainy, so we kind of want to try to keep it there. Our expenses, just kind of got there. Our administrative expenses, basically that is our set sanitation. So we have a dumpster out there, just some accounting fees. We have also dues to a couple associations that we belong to. Board of director expenses, convention expenses, postal service. Advertising and promotion, that's very similar to what we have had in the past. And that pretty much is advertising and promotion, and then we end up spending about $7,200 a year printing the premium book that goes out to the ones that want to participate. Awards and other premiums, that basically is our trophies, ribbons, talent show, very similar to what we did in fiscal year 19. Buildings and grounds, improvements and equipment, those items, some of those will be covered. We get covered by the Minnesota Department of Ag grant, but we're always looking at ways to improve our facilities. Buildings and ground maintenance, that's just the general. Portable toilet and services, that is higher than our 3-year average, but that is very similar to what we had in 19. And actually, with things going on, I would expect it to be even higher next year, because what we did in fiscal year 2019 is we brought in not only the portable toilets, but we brought in the hand washing stations that we put around the fair. So that's part of that. Entertainment, that's the big part of that is our, we've got a tractor simulator, we do the pedal tractor pull, got some expenses associated with the demolition derby and the grandstand events, band shelter entertainment. We do a ranch rodeo, and then any fire and ambulance services we have for those fees. Otherwise, most of the other expenses are very similar to what we had in fiscal year 2019 or the 3-year average. Judging exhibits, those are just the judges that 4-H bring on, because we do pay the judges for 4-H, we do pay the premiums for the 4-H members, and we do buy all the ribbons and those items for the 4-H program. Payroll expenses, the only payroll we have is we have an exhibit coordinator who does all the entry and runs those checks during the fair for the open class, and then we have a groundskeeper who takes care of the grounds. And we do get tremendous amount of compliments on how the grounds are. I know from our carnival, they enjoy It's one of their favorite fairs to be at because they're on grass. They don't have to be on tar or gravel as far as their equipment. And then superintendent's assistants, just people that help throughout the fair, and then the utilities. And then at the bottom of the, just before the net cash flow, we have 1 year left on a lawnmower payment. Otherwise, that is the only debt payment we do have. So with that, I've plugged in the increase, if that is something the commission wants to consider, but that is just to help us keep the fair vibrant, keep the new things coming, and keep the grounds in good condition. I feel if we can keep the grounds in good condition on an annual basis, we won't have those big spikes of trying to maintain buildings that are.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just have a comment based on what Commissioner Campbell said in terms of a free gate to allow the public entry. I want to bring your attention to the entry stall and pen fees, which basically is entry fees for folks wanting to do open class exhibits, and the fiscal year projection is 0. There isn't a show you can go to that you pay $0 in entry fees. And what then going down to the total premiums paid, $14,612. Those dollars go to as premiums for awards to all of those exhibitors. And so you really are encouraging and helping to offset some of the costs of what the expenses are for exhibitors. And I think I really want to commend the Fair Board on that, because it's not only are you allowing access to the fairgrounds to those that may not be able to afford it, but also helping to incentivize, if you wish, exhibits and entries also. My second comment is the second week of the Red River Valley Fair is the same time as the Clay County Fair. And I know in the past you've moved that to avoid, is that something that the Fair Board is continuing to look at, or have you just determined that it's kind of two different clienteles that you're not conflicting?
I think we've determined over the last few years, because when it comes to the carnival and a few of the other items, I mean, we look at when we brought the demolitions early back a few years ago, we don't have enough stands, we don't have enough, so that's another issue we're going to do, is we're looking at renting bleachers for some of those events. We fill the grandstand, we bring in portable bleachers that we do have, so those are some things we're looking at. And then along with the carnival, 2 years ago, when I met with them at the end of the fair, they said, well, this is a record fair, there's no way you're going to beat this. Well, that next year we had the same conversation because we beat the year before. Right. So we as a board have kind of determined that I think we're two different types of fairs.
Yep.
The Clay County Fair is more the family, free entertainment, and I think the Red River Fair kind of leans towards the grandstand.
Okay. And then, so is there adding a day in, you go up to Polk County, it's almost a week. Is adding a day onto the Clay County Fair in the picture?
I guess we've not talked about that, but it's always a proposal we can look at. And what we are trying to do, and that's probably where some of the entertainment costs are coming up a little bit, is Thursday's kind of always been just entry day. But we do get a lot of families who come in, because we do compete, just like anybody else does, we do compete with the lake.
Yeah.
So we get a lot, I think we're getting higher attendance we're seeing on Thursdays and Fridays.
Okay.
So we're starting to get some kid activities and some of those things on Thursday evening, just to kind of, like you say, whether we're adding a day or not, we're maybe adding a day of activities that the families can participate in.
Great. And then I have one final question, I'm sorry. As all of us have gotten to a lot of different virtual things, probably more than we would have done without COVID, where is the Clay County Fair in terms of fair entry online? Is that something that you're moving towards?
One thing we are in the process of looking at is developing a new website, or getting a different website from, our current website is not real, I don't want to say current, but it's an old system, it's hard to maintain. We do have a board member whose husband likes to play around with that, so we are looking at a different website. And one of the goals of our website is that we can do online entry.
Okay, good. Thank you.
One of the things we have looked into, there's a group, I think they're out of Texas, that works with the Minnesota Federation of County Fairs, Sapphire. They actually do the Norman County website. It's been a little bit hard for us in the current budget situation because I think in order to set up a website, their proposal to us a few years ago was like $4,000 to set it up and $1,000 a year to maintain.
Okay, thank
But
you.
we are, it's a high priority for most of the board to get some type of different website where we can do make entries a little easier.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Jim? Okay, Jim, I really want to thank you. This is a very informative budget presentation, and thank you for the good explanation on it. You bet. So, we'll take this in all consideration.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we'll go into committee reports. Jenny, would you start us out today?
Thank you. Last week, on Wednesday, attended the CARES Act committee with the small cities representatives to basically do talk through the application process and any questions and offer clarity if they had questions. So thank you to those representatives for coming. I had then the next day a conference call with committee members to discuss some of the DMV issues that we've identified based on COVID. We're working on some alternative options there. I also attended the SWCD online virtual web meeting. Everything's going good there. They're continuing to stay busy with landowner concerns during COVID. And then yesterday we had another CARES Act committee. We talked about the application process that is not now live, and then talked about Mark's request that we addressed today, and also kind of talked more about the DMV piece. That concludes my reports.
Hey, Kevin?
August 12th, had the same CARES Act committee that Commissioner Moser referred to, so I won't comment anymore on that. On the 13th, I had a Lakes Country Service Cooperative meeting in Fergus Falls. And again, it was most of their discussion was related to COVID, and we did approve a safe learning plan during the COVID period of time. So, and again, they have the three potential types of learning: the traditional, the hybrid, and distance learning, and it's all going to be based on that percentage that Kathy McKay talked about. We're going to be using those guidelines. And then another CARES Act committee meeting yesterday, kind of finalizing up on the business application, and you know, we're understanding the importance of what's going on with the DMV, and we're trying to come up with some solutions there, and hopefully there will be more to come on that shortly. That concludes my report.
Hey, Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was absent last week, so this goes back to the 5th of August, and I have a report about the City of Moorhead Planning Commission. We met and forwarded a recommendation to the Moorhead City Council of increasing impermeable surface restrictions from 35% to 45% within the city in order to deal with the smaller, low-density residential lots that are being designed now. And that's my report.
Okay, Tuesday I had a PIC meeting. We had discussion on transgender clients and stuff, what the concerns are coming up on that. You know, how do you house them, and where do you put that? Homelessness and people in wheelchairs, how you handle that. So there's a few concerns we handled there. Next thing we talked about was the flex deduction for daycare. You know, so people can you change your flex deduction because you're now not paying daycare. Some of the people that are working from home are not taking their kids to daycare, so can they reduce their flex deduction? So we have discussed that we can allow that. Also on Wednesday, we had the Wild Rise Watershed Board meeting. There again, that was a virtual meeting, and They talked about community flood protection at Halsted and Hendrum, which has pretty much been, the project is pretty much completed. The roads have to be repaired, and Highway 75 has been raised up. Other than that, they had, we were talking about crop insurance on retention projects and drainage. That was pretty much covered that meeting. Thursday, not really a meeting, but we did canvass the votes for the election from last Tuesday. That takes care of me. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I did also attend the PIC meeting. I would just note that your description of the handicapped, wheelchair-bound, and transgender had to deal with the discussion that we had in detox, for the detox program. Later that morning, I had a meeting with Darren on a series of HR issues and Lori Johnson on budget discussions. Also had a series of care meetings that afternoon. On the 12th, participated in the Corona Relief Fund meeting that's been covered by both of our commissioners. That afternoon, we had additional planning, CARES planning meetings. County management, we discovered CARES, the 2021 budget during that time. We met with Kathy and her staff in the public health pre-budget meeting that you heard this morning. On the 13th, I had discussion with staff from AE2S on upcoming MCC JPA meeting. That afternoon, I met with Dan Molly and Derek LaPointe in regards to our business relief plan. On the 14th, we had additional CARES meetings. I also talked with Michael Stein from the Barnesville Record Review in regards to our allocations from CARES dollars. On the 15th, I met with Kathy McKay, Jason McCoy, and Rory Beal on tobacco ordinances in Clay County, on how they're moving forward and talking with the cities on their ordinances. I met with Joe Olson on a series of infrastructure issues related to CARES dollars. Also had a series of other meetings for CARES. Yesterday I did have the meeting with the coronavirus committee that's been addressed by our commissioners. So I won't go into further discussion there. I did have a discussion with Lisa Bodie and Christy Lashevsky in regards to the tax abatement program. We're scheduled to, we're in the second year of that. That tax abatement is scheduled to pass at the end of this year. And so we had some discussions about bringing Christy before the board in early September to talk about your interest in extending that program for another 2 years. I also talked with Lori Johnson. She's received word from the state of Minnesota. Currently, our driver's license division is closed here. That's operated by the state. The state is looking at opening another round of driver's license offices on October 31st, and we're hopeful that that will include the Moorhead location. So stay tuned there. That concludes my report.
I have another question. No, Nancy, our assessor's office, sent out an email concerning training for Board of Equalization. Do we need more people on that, or?
I think we're required to have at least one member of the commission. I think historically you've participated in that. Some of you have also done in other years. So the more commissioners that they can get through the training, the better that it is.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? No, we're adjourned.